listening to the Spirit Podcast.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the Spirit. I'm your host, Beck.
And I'm your co-host, Steph.
Hi, Steph.
Hi, Beck.
Guess what, friends? We just made the list in the top 15 paranormal podcasts in 2020. According to feedspot.com, we ranked in at number 11, just a few spots below Clyde Lewis. So if you want to check it out, I am going to link that listing in the description of this episode. Also, you can find us now on iHeartRadio. Steph, you know what's coming up?
Halloween's coming up.
Well, yeah, but you know what else is coming up?
I could say something, but...
A full blue moon.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
On Halloween. We also have a bonus Halloween episode coming up on Friday, October 30th, the day before Halloween, for you to enjoy. I must warn you, there's explicit language, but the fun and laughter will be flowing. Grab a drink, relax, have some fun with us, let your hair down, because sometimes you just have to let your hair down, you know?
Yeah.
Today, we are going to be discussing television series and video games. Is it television series or just series? Is series plural for series? Apparently Siri thinks I just called her. My phone just went off. We'd like to welcome Ricky and Brian into this discussion, so welcome, boys.
Hi.
Hi.
And it's apropos that we're discussing scary, weird, and paranormal TV shows and video games because, I don't know if you know this, but Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures is dropping an episode tomorrow, that would be Thursday, October 29th, called Horror at Joe Exotic Zoo.
Wow, there's got to be a lot of horror coming from that place.
Yeah, there's more horror to Joe Exotic. I mean, but hey, it's Joe Exotic.
I'm just trying to figure out what is it that he's going to be picking up, like dead lion roars or what?
Exactly.
Didn't he kill a few, like pretty much murdered them because he was angry with them?
Yeah, but is he going to be talking to the spirits of them? Zach? He's going to be like, Simba, come through, Simba.
It's gonna. I wonder if Carol Baskin's gonna drop by.
Oh,
no.
The ghost of
You'll
Carol
definitely pick up
Baskin.
that.
Yeah, that is one character who, of course, in this day and age, he's America's sweetheart.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because I just got over caring about all that stuff, too. I just got over that whole show and that whole...
And now he's bringing it back.
He's bringing it back, yeah.
Oh. Did you know that they actually, speaking of, I mean, it's horror movies, but they've made like 2 or 3... I don't think it's Trauma. It might be Trauma, but they've done like 2 or 3 zombie apocalypse, coronavirus style Joe Exotic movies.
Wow.
Now I think they're making 3. There's a great reviewer called Cinema Snob on YouTube who I highly recommend. He's reviewed all of them. They were each made in like 2 days, but I mean, think about that. At the beginning of the year, nobody knew who this guy was, and now they're making movies about him.
And he's still in prison, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Because he wants to get pardoned, I think.
Is he making royalties off any of this? Or
I don't know.
That's crazy. I'm wondering if they're making money off of him while he's sitting in prison.
Yeah, I'm not sure
I don't
how
know.
that works.
I know
use it.
Yeah, he's angry about not being a part of everything. I just remember that.
I'm over here sweating like a pig. I can feel my headphones sliding off my face.
This is the hot yoga studio.
Ooh, it is. It gets warm in here.
It's going to start smelling like beans and bacon.
What do you guys want to dive into first? Do you want to dive into video games? Do you want to dive into TV series?
Well, it's his first episode.
Yeah, let's do video games first.
Lead us into some really good, horrific, or really bad horrific video games.
Well, I'm kind of a scaredy cat when it comes to playing horror games. I can't really play them by myself, the modern games, because they're so scary. There's so many jump scares in modern horror games that I can't take it. You're so much part of that, what's going on, you know? So I would have to start from the beginning. For me personally, my very first video game that I ever got, that my mom bought me, was a Castlevania game. And those aren't scary games. They're just more horror-themed. They're kind of based on the Universal Monster genre, like classic Mummy,
Werewolf,
Frankenstein, yeah. And you fight those monsters with a guy that carries a whip, basically.
Right.
And he whips his way through a castle. Something about those games really captured my imagination when I was a kid. I played almost every one of them. I could not put them down. I still play those to this day. those old Castlevania games.
Now, I think I'm confusing Castlevania. Wasn't there like a video game too? Was it called Altered States or something?
Altered Beast.
Altered Beast.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was confusing that with Castlevania.
Yeah, Castlevania, you're basically fighting Dracula and his vampire hordes in his castle. Basically, you just go through the castle, and your main mission is to kill Dracula. And the best part about it is that they based a Netflix TV series on the show. There's been 3 seasons of Castlevania, the television show, which actually connects to the other part of our podcast, but it's probably the best video game adaptation. There's not that many good video game adaptations. I'm sure Ricky can attest to that.
Yeah, never watched Double Dragon.
Yeah.
What system did that come out? Like,
it started out on Nintendo, the old 80s Nintendo, then it graduated to Super Nintendo, Genesis, and PlayStation, and
so it just
it's
going.
everywhere.
It's classic.
Yeah.
It's just timeless.
But they haven't made a game in like over 6 years.
Oh, okay.
We were at Comic-Con though a few years back in New York City.
Yeah,
and they had a demo of it was made by the creator, right? And it's basically the successor.
The creator of Symphony of the Night, the most famous Castlevania. He was at the Comic-Con, and we played his video game. It was called Bloodstained.
Was pretty addicting.
Yeah, and I actually got that game when it came out, and it's basically Castlevania. You can call it Castlevania if you wanted to. It's basically the same thing.
Those games are great too, because even if you aren't into the horror motifs, like it doesn't matter because they're just good fun.
Yeah, they're basically skill-based. You have to be good at reactionary button pressing and jumping and whipping, and yeah, they're my favorite games. Yeah,
skill-based, kind of horror-esque.
They're hard, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as like horror, I think the first game I ever played that was horror was either Resident Evil or Silent Hill.
Yeah, Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I actually didn't get into them until just recently. The very first Resident Evil I played was the 7th one, and I couldn't play it alone. I had to actually get Steph. Do you remember? I had to get you into the room because I was too scared. It's basically based on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You come across a house in the woods, and you go in the house, and there's nothing going on. You just witness stuff happening.
Just horrific.
It's like being in a haunted house in a way. But
there's a lot of jump scares, and I couldn't take it. I had to be with somebody.
It's like a gross house. Like you come across garbage bags and dirty pots and pans and dead, gross things. It looks like a house that white trash people lived in.
Jump scares.
Yeah,
a ton of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard the Resident Evils got scarier as time went on. I think they're ranked right up there.
They're probably the premier horror game.
Yeah.
I was always a Silent Hill guy.
Yes, me too.
I've never played Silent Hill, so I can't attest to that.
I liked Resident Evil, I did. But after 3, it's kind of like the movie series where it's like, okay, is this... Where are we going now?
Right.
It all blends
like,
together.
It's still scary. It still brings out cool monsters and all these things. But for me, Silent Hill, I like the idea of... You're not even like a policeman or military or anything, you know. You're not that every character in Resident Evil was, but like Silent Hill, it's... I don't know. The original Silent Hill, for me, I love the setting. Yeah, based on Centralia. Old abandoned coal town in Pennsylvania that's been on fire since the 1960s.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just love that idea. You know, nowadays, quite a few people know about Centralia and everything, but back then, nobody had heard of it, you know, and it caused so many people to research it and visit it. I guess, like, local authorities, where it is in Pennsylvania now, they have to worry about keeping people out. There, the ground can just open up and swallow you. So...
Lovely.
Like, yeah, you know.
You burned to death, I'm guessing.
It's crazy. I guess there's still like 3 or 4 people that live there or something.
Why?
Still, they refuse to leave. Your house could just become a crater any day because this town's just slowly collapsing in on itself. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty creepy, but I just love how Silent Hill kind of adapted that, and it's a real life hellscape. They just kind of embellished on it.
I never played the game, but I am familiar with Pyramid Head. What is that?
Pyramid Head is... So, basically, the town it's caught between dimensions, and it's due to what the residents who were in charge of the town did a long time ago, but they basically opened up a portal to somewhere else. And Pyramid Head, it's like a, you know, hellish place where they opened up the portal to, obviously. And Pyramid Head's like, he's not in charge of everything. He's just this big monster, his job is to torture, essentially. He's kind of, I guess you could say there's parallels to Nemesis
Oh, okay,
the
yeah.
monster
I've
from-
played the third Resident
Yeah.
Evil, so I'm kind of familiar with that.
Yeah, he's kind of like... I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty parallel to that.
So it's like an unstoppable force you can't really fight against.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's like 12 feet tall with the giant pyramid thing. He has this huge machete.
I love the
sword
design
thing.
of it, though. It's so cool.
So his head is literally shaped like a pyramid?
He has kind of. I think they took inspiration from old medieval and early Renaissance torture devices, to make it, and it's just this big pyramid-shaped box on his head. Yeah, it's kind of almost like Cenobite from Hellraiser in a sense.
I was just thinking that.
He could fit right in with them. That's kind of his thing. But yeah, I do enjoy Resident Evil 2. I would say at least the first Silent Hill, to me, it was like way more kind of a unique thing. Because you had to peel away the layers as the game went on and figure it out. You weren't just dropped in Apocalypse. You're stuck there and you're trying to figure out where you are and why everything's happening the way it is. I don't know. I like that kind of stuff. I like stuff with some mystery to it.
I think the mystery is actually a little more frightening sometimes than seeing the actual monsters themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was for Silent Hill with me. It wasn't so much the demons flying around as much as not seeing the demons and hearing the demons.
Yeah, and just all of a sudden you could be in an empty room and then things flip. Suddenly you see what that room looks like in the other dimension and you're kind of there, basically, and it's filled with the most horrifying creatures you've ever seen in your life, and they're out to kill you. And it could happen at any moment, and that's what made, to me, the game more urgent. You were really trying to solve every puzzle and get out of every room, because at any moment, everything could flip, and you're running for your life. So, yeah, I always thought that was cool.
What you got, Steph? You got any video games that scared you? Is it even growing up? Maybe some old school
Well, it's
stuff?
funny you mentioned Altered Beast. That kind of scared me a little bit as a kid, because we didn't have a video game system, so we'd go to Pizza Hut. And their Altered Beast would be at Pizza Hut. And that was like the only video game in there. It was so exciting. But I would say, I think for jump scares and stuff, it was a Nintendo game, like Friday the 13th. And you were going along a road, and it was like you'd have the map of Crystal Lake, and then you'd...
Did you have the good music, too?
I don't know. Do you remember the music?
I don't know if they translated the music. I think they did translate the music into 8-bit.
Yeah. I
think they did. But that was... that game was so frustrating.
It was very
you didn't know what you were doing throughout the whole game. It was very obtuse. You didn't know where you were going. You would get lost. But there were guides that could help you. I remember back then. There was a number you could call, a Nintendo hotline. And
oh my god, the Nintendo hotline.
Yeah. You talked to an actual person and they knew all the answers.
Wow.
I wanted that job so bad.
That is one of the coolest jobs, yeah.
Nintendo hotline.
They had to study every Nintendo game so they can answer every kid's question about Nintendo.
Didn't they used to have like a cheat code magazine too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm wondering if the
and
hotline...
Game Genie, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But Jason would pop out from anywhere. You'd be in the house.
He was really hard to fight, and you'd get stones or knives that you'd just chuck at him. And he kind of like dashed back and forth, and you'd miss him a lot. And then if you did hit him, didn't seem like it did anything.
Right.
So if you actually killed him or did something, it felt like a huge accomplishment because you're literally hitting the buttons as fast as you could.
Yeah.
You'd just be frustrated and scared too.
You had like 6 or 7 counselors, and you would go through so many of them quickly.
Camp counselors.
Once one of them would die, you go to the next counselor. And I think you had to fight his mom at the end, right? His mom's head would float around. Or maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know.
Our mom's head.
I think you're thinking of Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse.
Maybe. All Saturday morning stuff kind of mixed in together.
I would have to say one of the... I mean, yeah, I played, Atari and Nintendo in the earlier generations of video game consoles and stuff. But outside of Castlevania, I didn't really play too many horror games until I got Sega Saturn. The much maligned system that nobody remembers anymore, but
kind of like the Turbo Graphics.
Yeah, but there was a game on it called The Mansion of Hidden Souls that I had as a kid. Familiar. Well, do you guys, any of you remember the game Myst?
Yeah,
I remember the show.
They might have done something with that because
Myst
was like in the mid-90s. It was like everywhere.
It was a huge game.
And, it was, and I had that as well, and I love that game, which is why I got Mansion of Hidden Souls. It didn't. I guess it did fairly well in Japan, but it didn't really do anything here. And I got it just secondhand. I came across it in a shop, and I mean, there was only like 5 games for the Saturn, so I was like, "Oh, a new game!" It's like Myst, where you wind up in an abandoned mansion, and each room contains a soul, and you're trying to solve this mystery of what's going
God,
on.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I do too.
And well, Brian, you've probably when we were kids, you'd probably seen me playing it.
Yeah.
It was not a particularly hard game, but for some reason, it took me forever to finally get through it. Nothing about it was like super scary. The ghosts weren't scary or anything, but there was a lot of kind of occult stuff in it. Or I guess what some people would say is occult stuff, like tarot cards and all these things. And I don't know, the atmosphere in it was creepy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I'll never forget that. If you go back and play it now, graphically, it's so terrible.
Laughable.
Yeah, and it probably wouldn't hold up anymore. But I thought the concept was really cool.
Yeah.
They've come a long way with video games. Even my partner had a Nintendo DS, and when they first came out, and it was a pink one. And she had gotten a game called Dementium 2. And that's just haunted locations and scary bosses and noises and jump scares. I remember watching it on her little DS screen going, that is horrifying. How are you playing this? Why aren't you playing, Mario Brothers? Such a punk.
I never knew they had, adult horror games on
They do.
the DS.
Yeah. I didn't even know that
crazy.
either. I was like, wow, why would you get this game? This is crazy.
I was also looking at, speaking of newer games, there's a game came out maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's for PCs. It's called Soma.
I've heard of it. I never played it, though.
I've heard of it, too.
Yeah.
It's underwater, right? Or am I
Yeah.
thinking of something else?
Yeah, well, it kind of. It does kind of have a similar sort of Bioshock thing. By the way, Bioshock, another
Bioshock.
great horror game. But it's... remember that movie Virus I was talking about in the last episode I was in?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same concept where you wind up on this lab and everybody that was working there had their consciousness transferred into machines, and apparently it was done really violently. And to get through the game and to solve these puzzles and to get out, a lot of these people, you have to unplug the machines they're in or cannibalize them. You have to kill them.
Wow.
What?
Or
crazy.
the game's just not going to progress. You'll unplug one and they'll just be like, hey, and as you slowly hear them fading out, they're like, you're killing me. But they're already dead, their body's on the floor, 5 feet away. So are you really, it's are we more than our thoughts kind of a thing? Are we killing them or are we just killing a copy of them?
It's like a psychological video game.
That concept actually reminds me of the game I'm playing right now. It's called Vampire. It came out a couple years ago. Do you remember?
Yeah, that looked really good.
Yeah, basically you're, I think it's the late 1800s. You're in England, London, and you wake up, you're in a pile of bodies, and you don't know how you got there, and you're thirsting for blood, and you end up killing your sister, drinking her blood, and you don't know what's going on, and basically you're a doctor, and you're trying to figure out why you became the way you are. And while you're doing this, there's a plague going around London, so a lot of people are dying. It's very appropriate for nowadays,
Yeah.
So it reminds me of that concept because you can basically kill any character in the game. You can drink their blood, but you take them out of the game. So you take out all of their missions they were going to give you. You take out all their dialogue. They're no longer in the game, and they no longer add to the experience of the game.
Yeah.
So it's up to you if you want to do that. You don't have to. It's very interesting. If you have a chance to play it, it's called Vampire with a Y instead of IRE. It's YR. Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's very cool.
That is on my list. I have been meaning to check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. The other game I was thinking of was Doom. Doom was...
Oh, I was thinking of that, too.
Yeah, that's an old game and modern game. There's modern versions of it, and it's such a... That scared me when I was a kid because of... the satanic implications of it.
Yeah.
Seeing the upside down crosses and the pentagrams and stuff from growing up religious, it was kind of like whoa, I can't believe they're getting away with this. I'm so used to Mario Brothers and Sonic the Hedgehog, and now I'm killing demons on Mars, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, they're releasing a movie, aren't they? It's the Dune movie's coming out?
Oh, no, I mean Doom. Doom,
Doom,
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going, I don't remember.
But you are correct. They are
Okay.
doing a Doom movie. Yeah, they did a Doom movie, though. That was pretty bad,
The
right?
Rock.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that.
Carl
Yeah.
Urban. It was not. It was no bueno. Speaking of video adaptation movies, but Doom also, it was one of the few video games to actively scare people who never played it.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
I mean, growing up, that was all over the news for a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And then came back again when I was in high school when you had Columbine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they brought that up in
Yeah,
the
got
Quake
blamed for a lot
yeah.
of stuff. Yeah.
Sort of specter of it, like, never left. You know, people still play to this. You know, you can play Doom on a calculator.
Yeah.
Like, I have one of those TI-83 calculators, and I can just plug it into my computer and download Doom on it and play it if I wanted to.
Oh, never
Like,
heard of
it's
that.
just,
I don't
yeah,
either
it's
on
just
a
like
calculator.
everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's everywhere. You know,
Wow.
It's endeared a lot longer than
Oh,
probably.
yeah. They
most
just
of the
had a
games.
version come out this year, and it's just as good. It's even better. It's like the most, I would say, the most metal game.
Yeah,
Like, it's the epitome of, like, the side of a van. The heavy metal
Yeah.
painting you would see on the side of a van.
I
It's
miss those vans when we were kids.
Demons
Those
and
airbrush
guns and
vans. Yeah.
explosions.
Or like a
Definitely.
barbarian on top of a mountain.
You guys have no
skulls.
idea what
We're
we're
just
talking
sitting here
about.
like,
Sounds like
Doom.
when you go to the state fair and you go into the haunted house and they have all that crazy graffiti or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
the drums.
Yeah.
It makes it look so scary.
It does.
Yeah.
And then you get in there and it's just this little train ride and then
It's
something
ridiculous.
just pops out. You get whipped around and doors suddenly open and then another thing pops up and then you're outside.
Yeah, but I think this sounds much scarier in theory.
I know, but it just reminded me because on
The
the
van.
outside, yeah, on the outside is that crazy artwork that made it look
It
so
always
amazing.
terrified me as a kid,
Yes.
the artwork. I would refuse to go into those rides because of that
I
artwork.
think you're right.
Yeah.
The last game I can actually add to this is something I saw a YouTuber playing because I don't play game systems anymore since I became an old lady. But I should. I actually should. But it was called Emily Wants to Play. Have you guys
Oh,
heard
I
of
know
this?
that one.
I've
Yeah.
heard of it, yeah.
The graphics aren't that crazy or anything, but I was watching a YouTuber play it, and she comes upon this little ghost girl, and you have to basically, when you see her, you have to freeze until she disappears. And the game is you essentially trying to find her through the house as the clock strikes 3 o'clock in the morning every time. And you have to try to find her.
And then do what?
I don't know the point of the game. And it's weird because she actually ended up down in a tunnel under the house that she discovered, and this vampirous, scary, zombie-looking chick killed her. And it was not the little ghost. So apparently there is a ghost, and there's actually that thing was Emily in the basement or in the tunnel underneath the house. So I'm not sure of the point because she didn't get very far. She kept dying. But it was just the fact that this little creepy Japanese-looking ghost girl would just show up, and she'd be like hanging on a wall, or she'd just appear out of the darkness. It's a weird game, but people play weird games.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
popular on YouTube and Twitch. Playing horror games like that, like Slender Man and
Yep.
what's the other one? Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the big one right now, and actually, Beck, you might take an interest in it, is called Phasmophobia.
I've heard of this. What's this about?
Now, it's a multiplayer game where you and however many of your friends can play as ghost hunters. And you take ghost hunting jobs and have all these missions to accomplish in these houses that you're trying to collect evidence in. But the thing is if you're in the house too long or around the ghost too long, you kind of like lose your sanity.
Ooh.
And when that happens, it basically kills you. But everybody's playing it right now. It's...
PC game?
Yeah, it's a PC game, but people are saying it's like the most genuinely terrifying game they've played in like ever.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen some clips from it. Some of the creations they have on that thing are pretty nuts, but yeah, that's kind of the big one taking the world by storm. My nephews love Five Nights at Freddy's, and
Yeah,
I
I can't get into it.
yeah, to me it's I've never been like you know how like clowns or like things like
Yeah.
that. They never that whole like twisted kitty stuff to
Yeah.
freak you out, or like the Chucky doll
It's
thing.
like a teddy bear,
It
right?
never, it's all sorts of like Chuck E. Cheese things.
Chuck E. Cheese animatronic monsters
Yeah.
that come to life
That's
at
what-
night.
That stuff never freaked me out, so it kind of made me laugh. Like, remember Critters?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that didn't. Yeah,
Yeah, those were more funny than anything.
yeah, it's like or Gremlins or any of that. It's that kind of stuff never made me afraid. But my nephews will jump through the roof when they play that game. Sometimes.
That seems to be wildly popular because under that YouTuber that was playing that Emily game, someone had said, "Hey, you have to check out the Five Nights
Oh,
at
really?
Freddy's." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What is that?" So I googled it and saw what you're talking about, and saw a little weird-looking vampire teddy bear.
It's a very, very simple game, and the guy that created it is like a millionaire.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
You know, one game that turned out not to be a horror game, but I think kind of falls into the category of a horror game is, you ever hear of a game called Gone Home?
Yes, this game is amazing.
Yeah, Brian, why don't you give the synopsis on it?
Basically, you belong to a family with a younger sister, and you go home. Are you coming home from college?
Yeah, I think so.
You come home from college, and it's kind of like a stormy night. You get home, and the home is empty. And you're trying to figure out, like, where everyone went. And there's little clues everywhere throughout the house, and you can't get to certain parts of the house until you do, like, find keys or...
Kind of like Home Alone.
Yeah, kind of like Home Alone, yeah. And I don't want to ruin the ending for anybody who hasn't played it, but it's very touching at the end of what happens.
It tells this whole encompassing story of the whole family, and I love how it takes place in, like, 1995.
Yeah, there's a lot of 90s references in it. A lot of... grunge rock and Riot Girl music and
nice.
X-Files type stuff.
Yeah, it's like, once again, kind of like the Mansion of Lost Souls game. The setting is kind of creepy, but you're really unraveling this story.
You don't know what happened. Like, you come home, you told your family you're coming home, and everyone's gone, so you have no idea where they went, and it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Because there's so many possibilities, but what actually happens is very nice.
Yeah, and it's almost sort of
they
mundane.
went to get pizza.
I know.
Yeah.
She almost lost her mind. And we're like, we just went to go get pizza.
But yeah, it's almost sort of mundane, and
it's award. It's like it didn't win like a ton of awards.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
I didn't even realize there was a video game awards.
But anybody out there that wants to try one of the games we're talking about, that would probably be the one.
Yeah.
It's available on a lot of different marketplaces. You
It's
don't have
very
to worry.
short.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about getting scared. It's not that expensive.
Right. It's just atmospheric.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll kind of tear up at the end.
You're not going to get any bloody horror jump scare.
But you always think you are.
Yeah.
When you're playing it, that's the thing. And it's kind of, you know, when you're a kid and you're alone in the house at night, like everyone's asleep, or maybe your parents went out and, you know, you're preteen. So everything is still kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you're still kind of afraid of the dark and stuff. It's kind of that feeling. You're walking through your parents' house alone. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of put me back in, like, my 13-year-old shoes, you know?
Yeah.
Playing that game. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, I think a lot of people get something out of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the less you know, the better it is. If we explain it more, then...
They're making me want to try this.
Yeah. It's a very, very cool game.
I am not a player of video games anymore like you. I think the last video game I played was like in 1999. It was probably Tomb Raider, because that was my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know when that came out, but I was playing it in 1999.
Around that time.
Yeah,
97, 98.
97,
yeah, I think 96, yeah.
I liked how you had to solve the puzzles, and that had some suspense to a lot of it, and people would pop out and shoot at you, and I liked the adventures you'd go on, like ride.
I wouldn't label it as scary, though.
But there's a part in there that was really scary. Brian and I were talking about this earlier. We can't remember if it was from the first video game or the second, but she gets into this, it looks like a prison area, but everything's dark and black, and you see bars on cages, and then you hear this howling, and it ends up being like these Yeti creatures, you know? It's actually quite frightening.
Wow.
I freaked out when I was playing it. I would kind of panic when I'd get into that situation, and it took me a while to figure out how to take care of everything, you know? Really just go over to Brian's, and he's like, if he says he's got a new game, do you want to see it? And I'll watch him. I'll just drink beer and watch him play.
What about, I saw you playing, was it A Plague Tale, Lost Innocence or something like that?
Oh my god, yeah. I forgot about that. I didn't finish it, but it's basically, it takes place during the plague, I think during the Renaissance, I'm pretty sure, in France. You and your little brother are on the run. So there's something up with your little brother. He might be sick, or he might not be sick. You might have the cure, but people are after him. It's pretty cool. But the point of it is, there's a lot of parts in the game where you have to like avoid rats, because it's the plague. You know, there's swarms of rats, and the only way to avoid them is to have fire with you, or to throw fire. So it's like kind of like a puzzle game like that, where you have to find out where to go. You know, using the fire and trying to avoid being succumbed by rats. Yeah. It was really cool. I never finished it, so I can't say if it's great. You know, I don't even know how far I got into it, but it was cool from what I played.
Well, I will find any excuse to fit my favorite video game series into a list, and I'm going to do it now, because it did take a lot of its themes from, I guess, kind of like Lovecraftian horror, but is the Mass Effect series. It's really sci-fi. These giant machines It's sort of like an army of Cthulhu's starting to end the universe.
Synthetic Cthulhu's.
Yeah. That series, I mean, pretty much everyone has played at least one of the games at this point.
What's a Cthulhu?
I'll take Cthulhu for $500.
Cthulhu is, man, he's a Lovecraftian
Are you talking
god.
about H.P. Lovecraft?
that
storyline. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be here all day, but he basically is one of the elder gods that ends the world. That when he wakes up, if you know a little bit about, like, he's covered in tentacles and possibly miles tall.
Are they from outer space?
In the game, they are.
Okay, that would make sense with tentacles and all that.
Yeah.
So basically, an alien space race is coming in to destroy the Earth?
Yep, and there's just like no hope. There's no reasoning with them because there's tons of points throughout all three games where you're having a dialogue with them. But the thing is these creatures are like the repository of all knowledge that's been accumulated. Like, they are light years ahead of you in intelligence, and so trying to fundamentally reason with them, they go, no, we've been through this literally millions of times before. You think you're the first, you're not. We reset the universe every 50,000 years. You could try anything you want, but it doesn't matter. Your end is coming.
Well, that's just depressing.
You'd think so, but the games are actually all about hope and relationships and how learning to rely on the people that care about you, loving and trusting, your friends, and having faith in them kind of stops the universe from ending. Because in the third game, like, it really is the event horizon scenario. Like, they have, maybe a few years before everything's over with. The war is going on in every corner of the universe to try to stop it. People are dying, whatever. There are certain parts of the game where you might have to make a decision. One of your crewmates, you might have to sacrifice them and their entire race to save everybody else. Only if you're really smart and you've played the game 700 times like I have, can you kind of get around that and everybody gets to go home happy.
Let's start talking about scary TV series, or series is...
Series
I
bet you it's not series because it sounds pretty bad, doesn't it?
Well, it's like Moose.
Meese.
Right. Meese. Series. Okay. What you got, Steph?
I haven't seen a lot of the ones recently, so I can't say I have huge memories. Like, I can't just talk about an episode. They're pretty far back, and I don't watch much of the series now. Just a few.
Oh, good. So you took the classic, because I kind of came into the modern side of it. So this might be a good list for all of us.
So just to say, my all-time favorite TV show was X-Files. I think with all the classic ones, X-Files has always been my favorite. Love it. I've seen everything.
Even the new reboots of it?
Yeah.
Were they as good, do you think?
I liked them.
A few were good, yeah. I love the X-Files too. That's my favorite. One of my favorite TV shows and probably my favorite horror show. I wouldn't call it a horror show, but there were horror episodes,
Yeah, paranormal, supernatural.
Yeah, it's my favorite of that type, and I think what they do best, I'm not a big fan of the ongoing alien stuff that they do. I'm more of a fan of the Monster Week type episodes that they do. Those are more horrifying. My favorite episode I've watched a bunch of times is The School Council is secretly satanic. Do you guys remember that one?
Yes.
Yeah, didn't they base that on
It's
an
kind of
actual...
based off of...
Well, I don't know how much it was actual, but a story from the 80s, like about a nursery
It's
school
like
or something.
California or
I
something.
haven't heard that, but it might be possible. They did
There
do
was
that with a lot of
definitely-
shows, yeah. But that one's like an actual horror movie to watch. It's kind of depressing, actually. A lot of the episodes are very depressing because they're always overcast. It's always raining, They have the long black overcoats. It's very 90s. That one episode is my favorite. I always go back to it. I can't say the name of the episode because it's in German. I don't want to screw it up.
Oh, okay.
But another cool thing about X-Files is there's a lot of episodes where they mention Syracuse in it, which was always really awesome
Yeah,
to
that was
hear.
cool.
Yeah, which
'Cause
ties into, I'm sure, another one you have.
Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rod Serling was from Utica, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a city 45 minutes from here. So actually there's a story, I don't know if we mentioned that Brian is my brother.
No, we didn't. I just
No.
thought we'd keep him mysterious.
And Ricky is my nephew.
Yeah, our dad, I don't know if you remember this story, Brian, but Dad supposedly wrote a letter to Rod Serling.
Vaguely, I don't really remember the details, but
yeah, he had a whole idea for a show, and my dad sent the idea for the show to him, and he got a reply, but they didn't accept the episode. They said that a lot of people give ideas, you know, and that they can't just do that, I guess.
I think it's also nods to the fact that, I mean, a lot of people might not realize it, but we have such an unusual amount of both alien and ghost sightings out here, especially around like the central New York area. And so I think that kind of played quite a bit into it. And I'm sure, I mean, all the nods to the past creators that horror always tends to do, I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Well, Syracuse was considered a psychic city. It was highly saturated with psychics. And then you had Stephen King that would go to Utica. Isn't that where Rod Serling was from? Was it Utica, or did you say Ithaca? I can't remember.
Utica.
He would write his novels in Utica, but he would get all shit-faced and get all...
Well, Utica is a dying city.
Yeah. Well, it's the armpit of the world. I'm sorry, Uticans, if you're listening. I apologize, but we know the truth.
You got some good food there.
You do.
Very good food.
Utica greens, great chicken riggies.
Great bakeries.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good bakeries.
So we're trying to make up for the fact that we called you the armpit of the world over there.
They have at least a sense of humor. So what's the joke about Utica?
Oh, the last one leave, turn out the lights.
Yeah, last one who leaves, turn out the lights.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of up here is like that now. But at the same time, it's one thing I kind of love about living up here is we're... I mean, to be quite honest, I think we're going to kind of mirror what the rest of the country looks like in another 5 years. So, I mean, we're way ahead of the curve, you know?
Yeah.
We're not even going to notice, you know, the whole world's going to explode and we're going to be like, what was that noise?
The Simpsons movie, we're going to be in the bubble. Like,
yeah.
Completely cut off from everyone else.
Well, it kind of leads me into The Stand. They had a little for TV
Is that
series.
From the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did one with...
They didn't do another one, did they?
I want to say they did another one. I know
don't
they did one with Rob Lowe.
That one is great.
Oh.
That one is
when
really
was that?
good.
In the 90s.
The Rob Lowe one?
I think so.
Yeah.
The one with Gary
remember.
Sinise, that's the...
Yeah, they're both in it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a huge cast.
Yeah.
It's an enormous cast. That's a great pick, though.
They did that a lot back then. Remember It, too? Remember
Yeah.
They did that with It. They made that into a miniseries.
Oh, yeah. Stephen King seemed to do that a lot.
Yeah,
his
that's
stuff.
that's what I meant.
But that was a great one.
Yeah, I really have to say, since we're talking about the 90s, anybody remember Tales from the Crypt?
Oh, yeah.
My God, yeah.
You know, I mean,
Crypt Keeper.
that was an event when that
A lot
came
of people
on.
don't realize it, but that's based on a comic book.
Yeah.
You know, from the 50s that got banned. That comic book was the reason why we had censorship from the 60s on in comic books. They thought they were corrupting youth with all the violent imagery of people getting murdered and vampires and stuff like that and ghouls. And, yeah.
Wow.
It brought a lot of bad stuff down on the comic book industry.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
It wasn't their fault. It was the senator that passed the law or that went after him. That was his fault. But anyways, it was a great show.
Yeah, I loved, I think he'd annoy me now, but the Crypt Keeper back then was great.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought back that old serial, you know, type of deal, like an early TV. I mean, my grandfather, you know, being one of the co-creators of the Baron Damone show.
Right.
And that whole, you know, that was a big deal around
with a
here.
host that introduces the show and everything. Yeah,
makes jokes, funny skits. I mean, by the time Crypt Keeper, you know, and that whole show came around, like, you didn't have that on TV anymore.
No.
So that was...
I think that put HBO on the map, too. I don't think we would
Yeah.
have as much
That
good
is
HBO
Spawn.
shows.
Yeah.
Kind of started that whole HBO doing their own shows and everything.
Yeah, that and Spawn.
See,
Oh, yeah, Spawn.
your dad didn't need Rod Serling to make a mark.
No, there are so many people that I meet that remember that show because they're an older generation. This is way before I was born. My dad, he worked at a local television studio, and so they used to like to do entertainment, you know, Saturday movies, and they would come up with their own skits. They created their own show, and it got hugely popular. He had a lot of funny stories. They had a record that was out. Because it was local, it was really huge here, and it did spread to other states, and the record got further.
Do you think that Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, was kind of like a spin-off of that?
Every city had their own local...
And every station in every city did.
Yeah, had their own little skit thing that they did. It was just what they did back then.
Right.
And a lot of those shows they lost because there was a fire at Channel 9. It was all lost. There's only a few things left, and they actually have that on YouTube. So if anyone is interested, they could look up Baron Dimone. And
I'm sure they're going to be running to YouTube looking up Baron Dimone.
Well, there's actually...
It's cheesy.
I wish I could remember his name, but there was actually a gentleman who was really into the Baron Dimone show, and he reached out to me on social media. He wrote a book about all of the local, like, Central New York shows like that, and obviously Baron Dimone was a big part, and he has a lot of the merchandise and stuff, and has his own YouTube channel that has, like, interviews with, unfortunately none with Grandpa, but some of the other people involved with the show. So he's really gone a long way to preserve it, and, there's not that much left, but what is left, hopefully will be around for a long, long time.
Going on to more TV series, the other one I loved as a kid was Friday the 13th, the series.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one? And was that from Canada? I just feel like that wasn't ours, really.
Yeah, it was.
I'm not exactly sure.
It kind of fell into a weird realm of shows. There was a bunch of kind of, like, remember how they had RoboCop, the show? Yeah, and seriously, and there was like a Beauty and the Beast show.
I remember that. I used to watch it.
It's just like a weird Phantom of the Opera kind of thing. I think there was a lot more creativity on TV back then. Yeah, let's make a show out of it. I don't really think that happens as often anymore. But
That's true. And they all came out around the same time, like The Hitchhiker. Remember The Hitchhiker?
Oh, yeah.
The movie, or there was The Hitcher.
No,
The
the
movie, but
Hitchhiker. It was a
Hitchhiker.
show. I think it was HBO.
Yes. No, now I remember.
Yeah, kind of graphic. A little bit of pornography in it, light porn.
I don't know.
Very
I
light.
don't remember.
I didn't grow up.
Previews.
Yeah, we didn't have HBO or cable
Okay.
or
We stole it.
sugar.
Yeah, we stole it too.
Yeah, you stole it. I'm probably going to get in so much
Me
trouble
too.
for saying that. But
We don't have your last name, don't worry.
that's a show I haven't thought about in a long time, though.
I've got a show that I used to love and now I don't care about anymore. It's The Walking Dead.
Oh.
Oh, boy.
I stopped watching that show for the past couple seasons. I just gave up on it. But I used to love that show. We used to buy the seasons before they came out because, of course, we don't have cable. It was just like stretching it out for too long. And nothing would happen, and they would go through the same exact thing over and over again. They would, like, find a place to settle, make friends with people, and then a bigger fish would come into the pond.
Always.
And they would have to deal with that. It just went on for too long. Kind of lost interest in it. But people are saying it's good again, so I don't know if I should go back.
I liked the last season. I thought it was actually really surprisingly good.
Yeah, but Brian's right. They just keep stretching
It's the same story
out
over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Steph. I did watch the newest season. I'm kind of like, what do I do? I'm at this point. It's like I feel like I started it.
You invested so much time into it that you have to see it through, but
Yeah.
I think it's like a weight off your shoulders when you say no more.
No
Like,
more.
I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm
quitting you, Walking Dead.
Anyone remembered either the original or the remake or reboot or whatever of The Outer Limits?
I never watched it. I know about it, but
So good.
It's basically a Twilight Zone type
Yeah.
show, right?
Yeah.
I remember that.
It just lacked a charismatic host.
Of course.
That was the difference. But
What was the other... To go back to Twilight Zone and Rod Serling, what was the other show he did in the 70s? Something Gallery. Like, was it Nightmare Gallery?
Yeah, I think it was Nightmare Gallery. Yeah.
That was kind of the same thing.
I've seen maybe like a couple episodes of
Every
that.
episode I ever watched of that always dealt with Satan for some reason. Satan was like the main theme of every episode I've ever seen of that show.
I never saw that one.
What about
Satan was very popular in the 70s. A lot of movies, satanic movies, like exploitation movies.
What about horror soap operas? Dark Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to mention Dark Shadows. I never watched it.
Oh God, I was addicted to it when it came
I
out of the
never
Sci-Fi
watched it.
Channel. I don't know why, because I go back and watch it.
Well,
now
this
and-
is a funny story, but when I worked at Twilight Book and Games, which is a comic book store, there was a man that would come in that I would get a few weird characters that would come in every day, and I'm pretty sure they're mental. So I had to deal with a couple people that were just so funny because of their mental issues. So this guy would come in and he'd tell me every day about how he wanted to take Dark Shadows. He thinks that Dark Shadows and Star Trek should have combined a show together.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
I think those were his two favorite shows.
Yeah.
And so he just thought these characters need to meet each other. Somehow it was his fantasy. And I found out later this guy was getting in trouble for stalking women up at the university.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
But he seemed kind of harmless to me. I just think he just would get infatuated with something and then just persist, but not be violent or anything, and just annoy people. And the other guy that used to come in would wear like a Batman suit out of nowhere. Like he would come in with this with an awesome Batman suit, and he would make it
You
himself.
sure it wasn't actually Batman?
He wasn't there to entertain any, but I'm sure that like kids would go up, Mom, I want to get my picture taken with Batman. Little did they know it's the mentally ill guy.
Now, what about Black Mirror?
Oh, yeah. Those are scary shows.
They
Those
are.
very terrible because they're so true. I can see this happening. The one episode where you rate everyone,
Yes.
pretty much. That's
Social
pretty much
media,
social
like,
media
yeah.
is now. That's why I kind of stay away from social media because I think it would drive me crazy. But
Well,
that's
they were
why-
actually doing that rating system in China.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it is like an episode of Black Mirror happening.
Yeah.
Have you watched Black Mirror stuff?
Just a couple episodes.
Yeah.
I never went through the whole thing.
The Black Mirror kind of has a cousin called Channel Zero. You guys heard of Channel
I've
Zero?
heard of Channel
Never
Zero,
heard
but
of
I
it,
have not seen anything.
It's
on
more like instead of Netflix, it's on like a basic cable or maybe a little extended cable channel. Each season's based on something different,
it. Yeah.
but it's very similar, yet a little different. I think Black Mirror has a little. I don't know. I like that every episode's different, kind of like
Yeah.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to bring up, I know it's like terrible, but I have to bring up Are You Afraid of the Dark? Because
Wait a minute.
it's for
Oh,
kids.
no, I'm thinking of Goosebumps.
I was thinking
And that
of-
was the
yeah.
other one.
Goosebumps.
That was the other one. But I always thought Are You Afraid of the Dark was so cool because it was like this group of friends hanging around a campfire
Oh, yeah, I
every
remember this now.
Friday night or Saturday
Yeah.
night or whatever. And I wanted that. It was like they were all trying to outdo each other with stories. It was kind of, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously, like I said, it's for kids. You go
Well,
back
yeah,
now
but
and-
even Goosebumps was a little scary at the time.
yeah,
I mean, they hold their own. I think
yeah. You know,
just
they
kind of
can.
like Unsolved Mysteries. It's a
Oh,
reality
my God, yeah.
show, but it was horrifying.
Yeah. Sightings. That just made me think
Yeah.
of Sightings. You guys remember that show?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was great. I'm pulling too many member berries off the tree, so I'm gonna go silent for a bit.
No,
but I had to
no.
mention Sightings.
Did you have that on your list?
I completely forgot about it until
Yeah,
just
I did
now.
too. That was a good one.
I highly recommend Sightings because if the episodes are really good, they're still hair raising.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, the special effects and everything is so bad, you'll at least have a good laugh. But it goes either way. And I just love that idea of like Unsolved Mysteries for the paranormal, like specifically, you know, because Unsolved Mysteries would do that kind of stuff sometimes. But
They just revamped it.
yeah, but it's Robert
Yeah.
Stackless.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I enjoyed it still. I
I haven't checked it out, so I'll reserve judgment.
I binged through on Netflix. I did, and actually, I went camping in one of the UFO stores in Massachusetts right after we watched the episode. I'm
Nice.
going to the Berkshires after I watched Unsolved Mysteries, American Horror Story,
Oh, my God. Why did I forget about that?
right?
Yeah.
I
I
was
mean,
coming up with a list and I completely forgot about that.
uh-huh.
Yeah. I haven't seen the past couple seasons. I think the last season I saw was the one with Lady Gaga in the hotel. That was the last one I saw.
Oh, that was a
but-
good one.
That was a
Yes.
good one, yeah. I thought they
Yeah.
were getting back to form with that one,
I
but
think I'm the only person in the world who hasn't seen that show.
I have not seen it. Rick.
Oh, okay.
they're all
and
standalone
buddies.
seasons, right?
Yes,
the
they
stories
are.
are contained to that
Every
one
different-
season.
Yeah, and some seasons are floppy.
Like
Yeah.
True Detective.
Oh,
Yeah.
The first season of that
It's
is
amazing.
Yeah, not only that, but it kind of a genuinely frightening story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, the subsequent seasons and whatnot. Yeah, not so great.
I loved The Haunting of Hill House. I thought that was super good. That's probably the
So I
most
haven't
recent.
finished that.
No?
No,
See-
I started watching it last year, and then I couldn't finish it. And I started watching it this Halloween, and I'm still going through it.
I thought some of the designs of the ghosts or whatever were cool, but I thought it got a little gratuitous with it was like every scene had to be, oh my god, what's going to jump out at me? And it's like, I need a break so you can develop the characters a little bit and I can actually care about them. You know what I mean? That kind of got on my nerves after a while, where it was like, every time they open a freaking door, you know, they got to build it up with the suspense. But it's like, he's just going to the bathroom. I don't need a jump scare here.
Then they went in the opposite, what you're talking about. They went opposite with Bly Manor, which was just released. And Bly Manor, it was just too much story and not enough.
Just people talking.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, we really are delving in. It is a beautiful place. But, and it was a take on Turn of the Screw, which has been remade over and over. So, Hill House, alright, I'll give it to you, but I'm only for the same reason that Rick said, is I like what I could spot in the background, the different ghosts that I could catch. It was kind of like Where's Waldo for me.
I like the whole idea of where they're kids, you're seeing the portion when they're having their flashbacks, and then you see that
those
how they are as a complex adults. They all got issues, they're not all friendly with each other, and they all have to come back and deal with this. I don't know, I just kind of like that aspect of it.
No, there were definitely good parts. To me, that's the thing, is there was enough of a story that I saw that I wanted to see more. And it was just like, when, you know, each episode was it was over 60 minutes, right? Most of them were like 80 minutes long or something. And it's like, when you have 77 minutes of it, of just suspenseful music, and it's like, I'm not even like frightened or on the edge of my seat anymore. It's like, it's been going on the whole episode. It's like every time someone makes a sandwich, there's going to be something jumping out at you, and it's like, after a while, you're just like, I don't care. And that was what was kind of disappointing to me, because, I thought the characters, I bet they're cool people, but I wouldn't know, really, except what little I saw of them. So, I don't know.
I have The Terror on my list. Have you guys seen The Terror?
On my list to watch.
Oh,
I haven't seen it yet.
Gotta do it, guys.
Yeah.
And actually, again, each season is different. So I've watched 2 seasons so far. I think you guys would really enjoy the first season. And that's a group of soldiers, I want to say, way back in the day. And they end up in the Antarctic, I believe. They get stuck.
Oh, I gotta check it out.
Oh, that's a good one. I think you two would love that one.
Yeah.
Season 2 was more based on Japan and Japanese kind of folklore, their idea of a demon, which was a geisha girl, but it jumped, and it was interesting. It was that one was more frightening as far as visually, even though there was some scary stuff in the first Terror. But both of them, I highly recommend The Terror for sure.
Yeah, I gotta check that out. We haven't touched on horror comedy yet, really. And what about What We Do in the Shadows? Which is an awesome movie, by the way, and I wish I thought of it in the last podcast.
The show, though?
The show,
was great.
I just pee my pants.
I love it.
It's
What's it
so
called again?
funny.
What We Do in the Shadows. And
I have no idea what
basically
that
a mockumentary, like a fake documentary about these vampires living in this house.
4 vampires picked to live in a house. It's like real world.
Yeah, it is.
Vampires.
So it's kind of like, it has that Office feel, you know? Like,
it does.
With the interviews and...
Is it on Netflix or where is it?
No.
It's on
FX.
Hulu. You can watch
And
Hulu.
Hulu,
That's that was on my list too, What We Do in the Shadows.
Nice.
Just because it gives some humor, and there's still some blood. And
The episode where they go out drinking with their their elder,
and he eats a slice of pizza.
And just like projectile vomits himself.
That's one of my favorite episodes, actually.
That was so funny. It was such a great
I love how they were
show.
drinking the blood of their victims that were already inebriated or on some kind of substance so that they could feel high on ecstasy.
That one is just awesome. Yeah, I love that show. That show's so good.
Nosferatu, NOS4A2. That is Stephen King's... Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, did Nosferatu. And that one's pretty good. It's definitely fun.
He also wrote Lock and Key, which is a new show.
I liked that.
I haven't seen the show, but I'm familiar with the comic.
Yeah. Lock and Key actually can be considered scary.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
Is that the kind of Narnia house one? Sort of deal?
The
Lock
house
and
with the
Key?
different dimensions.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a little bit of it. I haven't caught
on
up
Netflix.
with it yet,
It's up on Netflix. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that, though, too.
You used to watch Supernatural, right?
You know, I was intrigued by that, but it kind of... You know, I kind of like the idea, and I thought, you know, this is a great idea for, like, a serial type of show, you know? But then it kind of...
Couldn't pull it off.
Well, like Walking Dead, it was
just
like
petered out.
The first few seasons, it was like progressively the villains would get more powerful, obviously. So when they reveal, oh my God, they're fighting demons, it's like, that's a big deal. But then the next season, like, angels come, and it's like, how do you top that? I mean, they're like the supreme distillation of heavenly power. Like, how? But they found a way for 12 more seasons, and it was, okay, I'm done.
I think it's the same concept of diehard fans. People that have been with it from the beginning feel obligated to stick through it. Yep. Where Brian's like, liberate yourself and pull away.
Feel free.
Come on in, boys. The water's fine. Yeah.
So does anyone here like Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorites that have been recent.
I think the last season recovered itself a little bit because the season before it, I don't know. I found myself in a few episodes losing interest.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. And
season 1, then second season there.
Yeah, third season was good.
Yeah,
though.
I liked it.
I mean, I still think the first season's the strongest.
Nothing beats that.
Because
it was like, you didn't know, it came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember the weekend it came out, and I started watching it because of that. Just because of the 80s theme, growing up in the 80s. I'm like, I might find this interesting.
And Netflix didn't advertise it at all. They didn't think it would do anything.
Well, I think they knew they had a following. I think they just knew.
Yeah.
But it is weird, you would think. Yeah, I like that. How about that show? It's called Evil. It was
That's
on
new, right?
Yeah, it was on like NBC, ABC, CBS, one of those.
It's kind of like the X-Files where you have like two main characters, right? I haven't seen this. I just know of it.
Yep.
Which happens a lot in my life. I know of the thing, but I just haven't seen it. So, one's a priest, right?
Luke Cage guy there.
The Luke Cage is a priest.
Yeah.
And the most handsome priest.
He is the most handsome
I did
priest.
see the first couple episodes of that. Okay.
Yeah, that was fun, actually. If you, I'm considering
But is every episode about demonic possession?
No, all of them are
okay.
different. Yeah, kind of X-File-ish.
Mm-hmm.
She's a profiler.
One believes, one doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah, so okay.
Yeah.
I think I like that.
I think, considering it's just on standard television, it's not on any paid subscription channel.
It's from network TV, so how scary?
And actually, they do a good job.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I watched it alone, and there's some episodes that I was a little creeped out by. I mean, I wasn't like, I can't go to bed, but I was definitely a little, oh, this is a little creepy.
I'll imitate my mom when she was trying to tell me about this. You have to watch this show, Steph. It was so scary. There was a demon. You would have lost your mind. It was so scary.
This was right up your alley. I had said, Steph, this is right up your alley. You got to watch this.
I know. I think I saw one episode, and the problem was it was on at like 10 at night, I think, 10 o'clock at night. And I have to get up so early for work that I can't stay up that late. 8 o'clock comes, I'm starting to feel drowsy.
You sound like your mother now. I'm so tired. But you have to watch it. Let's talk about reality shows. I have a few on here. I mean, Unsolved Mysteries we've covered, but I like a show called Dead Files. I don't know if you guys have seen
this. This is probably my favorite paranormal reality show.
Is that with the husband and wife?
No.
The cop and...
The cop, but she's not his wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, she makes really strange faces all the time. And
Yeah.
I just love it because she walks in and she's always like, oh, there's a giant demon standing in the corner. I can see him and he's holding the head of a victim,
Oh, common. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
I know, when they have the sit down and she has the picture drawn because she gets like a police like drawing of what she sees.
Yes.
And she's always like, yes,
that's
what it is.
Is this what you saw, Amy? Yes.
And then when they show the people this horrific looking thing that she drew, you can see all their faces drop, all their faces turn white. They're like, well, what should we do now?
We're done. Bye. Good luck.
And she always brings in the craziest answer, like, you need a chaos magician. What? You need to take salt water and start washing the walls.
I recommend fire and lots of it. Yeah, that's a cool show. My dad's actually addicted to that one.
The Dead Files?
Yeah. I'll always, if I come over to my parents' house, and he's the one in control of the TV, it's either that or the first 48 that's on. I don't know, you know, that murder mystery show. 2 shows that took the early 2000s by storm that I still kind of like are A Haunting and Ghost Hunters.
A Haunting is super scary.
Yeah.
A Haunting in Connecticut, when I first saw that, oh my gosh. My dad was frightened. I've never seen my dad scared of anything. He's like, I'm going to get holy water and sprinkle it around the house.
But I love those like little reenactments and stuff that A Haunting did. A lot of shows kind of jump on that bandwagon now, but I really like that one. I got sucked into that pretty bad. I'm sure if I go back and watch them now, it's like, some of these are pretty corny, but...
It's true with most things you go back to. Like, why did I like this in the first place?
Yeah.
Another one I liked, well, you said Ghost Hunters, right? Mm-hmm. Taps?
Yeah.
That was good. Psychic Kids?
Yes.
I don't think I saw that one.
That one. Do they still even do that? Because
they rebooted it.
Oh, it's really good.
Chip
Coffee.
Chip Coffee
Chip
was in
Coffee,
there.
I know who he is.
Yeah.
He was on the Paranormal State. That was a good one.
That's on the list, too.
Yeah, that's the one I always would watch.
I feel like that was an OG one. I feel like that one really ushered in the reality TV ghost hunting.
Yeah.
What was the name of the guy that was like the main person hosting Paranormal State?
Ryan something?
Yeah,
but he had like a total life meltdown.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
After the show or before the show?
I think it was... They were still during
the show.
He did something where people bought either merchandise or tickets or something.
He was shisty. He was doing shisty stuff with money, but they think he had a drug addiction problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Major drug problem. So I feel bad because I like him, and I think he just had he was struggling with something and made a bad mistake. So I forgive him.
There was a girl on there, Katrina Wildman, who ended up bouncing out of that, and
she's got her own show.
Yeah, with Nick. Well, actually, she does Portals to Hell with...
oh, jeez.
What's his name? Ozzy Osbourne's kid there. Jack Osbourne.
That's... What?
Yeah, Portals to Hell with Jack Osbourne.
Oh, my God.
And she sprung into that. But she had done one before that I really liked. I think it was called Paranormal Lockdown. And she did that with Nick Groff, who was from Ghost Adventures that left. And they would actually get locked into a location for 3 days. They didn't mess around. Like, it wasn't like Zag Baggins, they go in for 12 hours, they lock themselves in overnight. He stayed there 3 days, and he would sleep in the scariest rooms that there were. They would split up at night. He might sleep in a bathtub where someone was murdered, and she might sleep in a hallway, of a morgue. And that's balls to the wall to me. Like, whoa.
The earliest show of that whole reality ghost thing I can remember was actually by MTV. It was that show Fear, where they would take a bunch of college-aged idiots and strap those camera vests to them where it kind of comes out like your microphone here and it like faces them directly.
I remember that.
That's all you see is their face in like night vision freaking, and they would just go, spend the night in an abandoned prison.
Yes, that was the one I remember the most, actually.
Yeah.
No. I would love to do that. I don't know.
You would?
Yeah, I would love to spend the night in any haunted house or
But would
prison.
you do it alone, or would you... Not alone, like if you had a partner and that partner was in another room and said, Brian, you sleep here.
I could do it.
Wow.
In my mind, I can handle it, but in the reality of it, maybe it would end up differently. I don't know. But I don't know. I always wanted to experience, because I never really experienced anything ghost-wise, and that's always interested me my whole life, was the paranormal. So I would love to put myself in that situation.
So
I would be afraid to bring it home, but...
We're going to do a live podcast.
Yeah,
I know.
With Brian.
Put Brian in a cemetery.
The whole night.
We'll just have
I
him
should have brought a blanket.
Yeah.
You just disappear and like wind up 3 hours later back with a hot dog.
I gave up.
Yeah, like a hot dog.
I already don't like camping, and I've explained that story before.
Even if you had a nice, comfortable cot.
I don't know if it's comfort. I think it's more my mind races at night and I don't sleep because of the unexpected. It could be unexpected because there's an owl in the tree, or there's a bear, or there's ghosts, or whatever. I know that one of the places that we'd go with Tim, I went there a couple times, but never spent the night.
I'd go there a lot.
Down in Tully, there was a little pond.
I spent the night there by myself once.
Oh God! And there was right when we get to the campsite, there's an old gravestone that's basically has a tree grown around it because it's so old.
Two of them, actually. It was
There's two?
Yeah, I looked that up. It was a couple that... So what she's talking about is right there in that spot, going back probably over a century at this point. It was actually a farmhouse on this lake right alongside the pond. You can tell that like a good chunk of the shore is this man-made shoreline. That was actually like a dike that they had made, and on the other side was, I guess they'd use it to like irrigate crops or whatever nearby. When they died, they were buried there, and the home's long since been destroyed. I don't think they had kids or something. Like, nobody inherited the house, so eventually it just, the house went bye-bye. And they've actually relocated the bodies. I even managed to find that out. But the stones are still there.
See, I wish I knew that, because I would have felt a lot better being there, because the moment I saw that, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that the spirits aren't roaming the hills.
I leave out whiskey for them when I camp there.
He does offerings.
I guess you could call it that. It's more of a, thanks for letting me kind of camp out in your final, what was supposed to be your final resting place. I'm going to just, here, have one on me. But
I do have Penny Dreadful.
That was good. I like that a lot.
Did you like the Showtime series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ava Green.
Yes.
I have the biggest crush on her.
I have the biggest crush on her.
She's absolutely gorgeous. She's perfect in that role.
She has a twin sister, Brian.
She does?
Yes.
Oh my God. So I have a chance.
Yes. She was perfect.
Great.
She was perfect.
They reinvented a lot of classic monsters too that I wasn't expecting, like the Frankenstein monster and the Wolfman and stuff like that. That was such a great TV show.
They redid it. There's a new Penny Dreadful, but I haven't
checked that
me
one out
neither.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I don't think
it already got canceled.
Did it really?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone can do it better than the original cast. Even though I'm not a huge Josh Hartnett fan, he wasn't too bad in that. Yeah.
Now, what Carnival was that show that I started with you?
Yeah.
It didn't really have much of an ending because it didn't.
It got canceled too.
But that was really, really good.
Oh.
It had a lot of paranormal-ish type themes, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it.
It was like a very classic good versus evil story. Two opposing forces. It was based in a traveling carnival. The evil guy was like a preacher, and the good guy was this wandering guy that ended up in the carnival. And I never finished it, so I can't really say that it ended up being that great. But it was well done. It was in the early years of HBO where they would cancel a lot of shows because they were so expensive. Like Rome. Remember Rome?
Even though only the first season of that was good, the second season was just But
now I think now if they did it, they could do it justice.
The only show I have left is it's like sci-fi horror, but it's an enduring classic, and it's one of my favorite shows ever. Is Doctor Who. And a lot of it is made for kids, and it's kind of you go back at it and look at it now, it's not scary, but I think there's one enduringly scary thing about Doctor Who, and that is, believe it or not, is the Daleks. And anybody who isn't into the show and just saw them or heard them would be like, what's scary about this? But once again, they just represent the evil. But I mean, they're these space Nazis in a tin can, and they're completely patient. They don't emote. They don't do anything beyond kill, and they're so singularly minded. I always thought that, to me, it's like I've said before in the previous podcast I was in, it's more like certain concepts grounded in reality tend to scare me, and so it's not like I would run in fear, if they came on the TV, but
well, the theme song was scary. I remember hearing that when I was a kid, and I'm like, what is that?
The
great
original
theme song,
Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I liked the one that the guy with the curly, frozy hair and big scarf.
Oh, Tom Baker.
Yeah.
My favorite was Sylvester McCoy, who was the last Doctor in the original run, because he was like this little man that was very happy and playful on the surface. He was like a clown, but his thing was, since he wasn't big and tough or couldn't even run that fast, his strategy was always to use enemies' hubris against them. He used to talk his enemies into suicide. He was like the darkest Doctor. He blew up planets 1 out of every 3 episodes. Well, he didn't. He would get the enemies to blow themselves up. So, and then, at the end of every serial with, story with him in it, you come to find out, the whole time he's been running, he's been setting them up. And I thought, to the point where he was so dark that in all of the canon and everything that followed after they canceled the show the first time, they were like, first of all, they ran off the rails with it. He just got darker and darker, and then eventually they were like, we're making this TV movie and we have to introduce another Doctor. Like, he is, because this one is just too far, like, the kids aren't going to like him, you know? Like, he's so out of it. But you go back and you watch it, and it's like, I like heroes that can kind of outthink their enemy, that kind of thing. So I always loved him for that. He was always like this, not what he was on the surface.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for being on the show. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me.
We're going to have you again. I'm sure we'll come up with something crazy.
Yeah.
I'm Beck.
And I'm Steph. Don't be the star of your own horror series.
Oh, man.
To the Spirit
Podcast.
Supernatural Science.
Aliens. I'm ghost.
Psychic.
Mystic.
Spirit.
Divine Source.
Heaven.
The dead.
It's magic.